I slipped and smashed my cell phone on my head. Half of the phone was embedded in my skull. It was the first time my doctor, who's been practicing medicine for 30 years, had seen me like this. He said I might need a craniotomy. That's why I came to the hospital. The final exam is tomorrow, and cell phones are not allowed in the exam room. I needed a certificate from the doctor. When I got home, I didn't feel like studying. I could only ask questions to the almighty netizens, but none of the comments under the post were useful. Suddenly, I received a private message. An anonymous user told me if my post wasn't a joke, I'd delete it immediately, or my life would be in danger. He said someone can lock my address by IP, and told me to contact him immediately. I don't know who he is, but it was obvious that he was an alarmist. But in order to understand my situation, I sent him a message. He asked me if I knew anything about molding. It's like a bug in some games. Two 3D models penetrate each other. I understood what he meant, but this kind of thing only happens in games, right? But then he suddenly asked me, how can you be sure this world isn't a game? The cell phone is inside my head. Doesn't that tell you something? I froze for a moment. I couldn't argue with what he said. Then I sent him my Earth number. Soon after, a beer added me ... but right away. He sent me a bunch of information about the beer. I was too young. The person on the other side should be a micro-businessman who adds friends indiscriminately. I deleted him without hesitation. I wasted the whole night without finding out anything. The next day, I arrived at the exam center early. Students were already lining up to hand in their electronic devices. I stammered to explain my situation to the invigilator. I took out the CT scan and diagnostic certificate from the hospital. The invigilator glanced at me and asked, "Can you turn on your cell phone?" Oh my god, my head was like this. He still cares about whether the phone can be turned on or not. Teacher, why don't you check it yourself? The power button is stuck inside. I don't think so. I entered the exam room without any problems, but I realized I hadn't studied any of today's questions. I know all these letters individually, but together they're like a book of words. At that moment, the cell phone turned on with a squeak. There was a special feeling in my head. I seemed to be able to see the screen of the phone with my mind. The interface of the phone also appeared on the test paper. I tried to copy the questions into Baidu's search box. In an instant, countless pages appeared in my mind. I couldn't be happy. I hurriedly started to fill in the paper with the searched answers, but as I kept manipulating my phone, I felt my brain getting hotter and hotter. I instantly realized this cell phone was in direct contact with my brain. The heat emanating from it was killing me. For the moment, I had to give up on getting a perfect score. I just hoped that the phone would last until I passed the exam. God blessed me. My brain didn't explode when I handed in the paper. When I got home, I turned on the faucet to cool it down. This thing almost killed me today. It only took 5 minutes and it was burning up. At that moment, there was a sudden knock at the door. A man's voice sounded at the door. "Hello, sir. The takeout is here. Please open the door." I was in the shower. I could only tell him to leave it at the door, but the delivery boy was too responsible. He said he was afraid someone would take it away. He insisted on waiting for me at the door. I didn't take it seriously. I told him I'd sign for it. I wouldn't hold him responsible even if it was lost. After I took a shower, I forgot about the takeout. I grabbed my computer and started searching for information. The poor delivery boy outside the house. He waited for an hour for me to come out to get the delivery. He came to the stairwell, pushed open the window, and climbed out. Following the air conditioning unit, he slowly felt his way to the outside of my room. "Kid, don't you want your takeout?" When I saw this scene, I froze in place. Are all delivery boys so dedicated nowadays? Something's wrong. When I saw the stick in his hand, I could already feel that he was full of malice towards me. I ran for the door, but I couldn't get the door open. The man's voice behind me was getting closer and closer. "You idiot, I almost fell from the 4th floor." When I regained consciousness, it was already dawn. I looked around in a daze. This seems to be the roof of a rotten building. Lying beside me was a fat man and a girl in the corner wearing a doll's headgear. We exchanged briefly. We found out that they were all captured by a deliveryman. I was a bit curious and asked, "The 3 of us are not big bosses. What's the point of kidnapping us?" After a period of silence, the girl in the hood spoke up. "I think it's because we're not normal. You have a cell phone stuck in your head. I can't get my hood off. I can't eat. I can't eat. I'm on N4. That's true." I turned my head to look at the fat guy next to me. "What about you?" "I don't see anything different." Fatty slowly said, "I have no shadow." Then he let out a long sigh. If only I had listened to that man. There was a girl on the internet who said someone was coming to get me. I ignored him when I saw that it was a substitute. Instantly, I got the creeps. We're all in the same boat. Before I could say anything, the girl beside me asked weakly, "Can you call the police with the cell phone on your head?" Shit. Because of the momentary panic, I forgot about this. I rushed to call the police on my cell phone. While I was still stammering, I didn't know how to introduce myself. The girl in the hood on the other side shouted, "We've been kidnapped." The three of us are in an abandoned building. The scenery outside was a bit like the countryside. I calmed down under the influence of the girl. I can use my cell phone to locate us. Good boy, I really didn't think you could call the police. When I was calling the police, I ignored the delivery guy who grabbed us. The cell phone on my head was shattered by his brutal attack. Then I got the worst beating of my life. But the physical pain wasn't 1/10,000th of what I felt inside. My newly acquired hang-ups were destroyed by him. Now, all I could think about was my anger. I was about to be hit again. A strange feeling suddenly came to my head. The stick just passed through my head. It didn't hurt me in the slightest. Taking advantage of the man's gap, I was able to hit a hold. And in an instant, the restraints on my body disintegrated. I seemed to have become an illusion. But I still underestimated the man's strength. I was as vulnerable as a child. He grabbed my head and slammed it against the wall. "Can't you penetrate it? Let me see it again. You guys are all holes in the world. More should not exist. So go to hell." Finished. He pinched my neck and rushed toward the wall, feeling the force. I felt that if I hit him like this, I'd be severely cerebral palsied if I didn't die. Just in the nick of time, I remembered what the mysterious man said. "How can you be sure this world is not a game? Have you ever heard of modeling?" Something magical happened. I went through the wall without a hitch. The shock of dying and the surprise of surviving were stimulating my brain. My brain was constantly stimulated. Even that horrible man couldn't help but exclaim, "You're the wrong hand." Then he realized something was wrong. One of his arms followed me through the concrete wall. And more importantly, I was able to slowly pull my body out. And he was stuck with his arm in place. The prey and the hunter had switched places. I picked up the baton he had dropped and walked toward him with a grin on my face. But then I realized I was wrong. I couldn't beat that man with one hand. The man said fiercely, "Why don't you put it on? Come on, go through my arm." This ability can only be controlled by a true wrong hand, and you're obviously not. I feel like I'm dying. The man's arm is getting tighter and tighter. Luckily, the hooded girl was extraordinarily brave. Trying desperately to save me under his influence. That cowardly fat man is no longer on the sidelines. With his participation, I slowly got out of the men's control. At this moment, I breathed in the fresh air. I was no longer afraid to go near this dangerous man. But there was a problem. They're still chained to the floor. The key was in the man's pocket. And then, a sweet voice suddenly rang out. "Looks like you've done it all by yourselves. I've told you repeatedly that you're in danger. Unfortunately, no one listens, especially you, cell-phone guy. Being beaten by a person who cannot move like this. You're a real piece of work, aren't you?" After hearing his words, the fat man instantly reacted, "You're the surrogate." The girl's big pretty eyes stared at her. "Call me Sister Wei Wei." Then she looked at the deliveryman and asked, "Are you a temporary worker? Hand over the keys to the shackles. We're taking over here." But the delivery man pointed at Fatty and Hoodie. According to the rules, these two patients are 100,000 each. As for the cell phone guy, he'll have to double that, because he has the property of wrong hand. Seeing that Sister Wei Wei is ignoring her, the man continued, "What? Everyone else is paying the same price. Do you want to break the rules?" "You're talking to me about rules. I'm really scared." Under Wei Wei's strong suppression, we were all untied without incident. She then formally introduced herself to us. Her name is Wei Wei. She's the one who added us earlier. The handsome guy behind her is her leader. You can call him Din. The reason why we were caught here, it's because we're suffering from a disease called bugs. As the name suggests, it's named after the bugs in the game. This disease cannot be cured. For example, the cell phone in my head, the part of the human body that was originally tissue, has been taken over by the cell phone. If we force a surgery to remove it, that part of the brain will be gone. We only have one choice now. We have to go with Sister Wei Wei, because they are the only ones who can cure this disease perfectly. Just when I was wondering if what Sister Wei Wei said was true or not, a team of police suddenly rushed out. It seems that my call to the police had worked. Facing the cold muzzle of the gun, Vivi didn't look the least bit panicked. "I'm sorry, Mr. Policeman. We have to go now." At the same time, I saw the man named Dim crouched down in front of the delivery man and said, "Buddy, I can't do anything about your arm. Have you ever heard of Yang Wei?" After saying that, he didn't give the man any time to react. A dark blue grid began to spread around the center. I was stunned by the scene in front of me. The real world turned into lines. Then the blue lines became brighter and brighter. My vision disappeared when I came to my senses. We were already in another place. Sister Wei Wei was a bit angry. "Why did you come to my house? You've brought all the dust here. I just replaced the sofa." The delivery man seemed to know something. He looked at the new brother and exclaimed, "You are actually a disciple." Dinjay is also a bit surprised. "You know quite a lot." The delivery man more and more confirmed his suspicions. Those who are caught off guard can only walk through walls and other tricks. You just moved through space. They're not on the same level. You must be the legendary disciple. Though I don't know what the terms handler and disciple refer to, but from their conversations, we can learn a little something. These people are no ordinary people. She instantly brought back everything in that space, including the dust on the floor, and I also noticed one of the delivery man's arms has also disappeared. That's the same one I brought into the wall, and the break was smooth as silk. There's a disease in this world called bugs. The mystery group says that my disease is modeling. It's like a game where you can pass through a solid body without physical collision, and it's contagious. The more people who suffer from bugs, the faster it spreads. That's why the newest member of the organization took Hoodie away. He said he would quarantine him for treatment. As for me and Fatty, we were left behind because we had the potential to become wrong hands. If we compare this world to a game, the wrong hand is the one who solves the bugs in the game. Simply put, it's an antivirus program. On the first day of joining the mysterious organization, Wei Wei told me in action, "I must follow the orders of my superiors. The most important rule is not to disclose the existence of the organization to outsiders." As newcomers, our first task was to cut down trees. This is a photo taken in two places in the city. The amazing thing is that if you combine the two photos, you'll see that the two trees are identical. It's impossible for two trees to be identical. This is obviously a bug. In the darkness of the night, we sneak into the neighborhood where this tree is located. We were led by a young man named Ching. He joined this mysterious organization before us. In order to prevent the neighborhood cameras from capturing our appearance, Fatty and I put on masks prepared by Ching. He said he would meet us in the car. He told us to go and come back quickly. Unfortunately, I didn't know at that time this bad guy was behind us. He wrote "I am a thief" on our backs with a highlighter. You can imagine how it ended while we were chopping down trees. We were seen by the security guards patrolling the neighborhood. It is said that the two security guards were quite surprised at the time. It was the first time they saw such an arrogant thief. Not only did he write his profession on his back and wore a bald mask to steal the tree, after being sent to the police station, we were also given special treatment. This is not just a simple case of vandalism. It was also a provocation to the judicial organization. Seeing the seriousness of the situation, I told the police that I was being framed. What I didn't realize was, right after I said that, Vivian sat up in the car. She was listening to our conversation. She came to my side. The police also found this incident a bit strange, so they asked me who was responsible for this. "Did someone force you to do this?" When I said that, many images flashed in my mind. Vivi's warning seemed to be answering in my ears, although she is a bit violent in her approach to solving problems. But every time she beat me, she even bandaged me up herself. The police officer also saw my hesitation. He kept reassuring me not to be afraid. "This is a police station. Just tell me what you have to say." I decided to tell him. "Someone else told us to do it." "Who told you to do this? What do you look like? What's your name? Where do you live?" One by one, slowly, I'll say it word for word. "He lives in the mountains. Everyone called him Bald Head." The police were a bit confused too. Is Bald Head his nickname? Why did he ask you to help him cut down trees? I told him that two bears stopped him from cutting down the tree, so he asked us to do it. The policeman on the other side of the street is also losing patience. "What are you talking about? Why don't we lock you up for the night? I'll ask when I've figured it out." Although the atmosphere on my side is very serious, but Vivian was already laughing in the car. Ching asked while driving, "What if they really tell us?" Vivian replied, "I don't think so. Then we'll have to put them in quarantine." When I was locked up in the cell, I didn't know that I had passed the organization's test. We were hungry and sleepy. After a while, a policeman came to us. Your sister is here to pick you up. She went to the neighborhood property owner to pay for the damages. The two sides have already reconciled. Don't do such a stupid thing next time. It's dawn after a long night. Wei Wei is waiting for us in front of the police station. On the way back, Fatty was the first to speak. I'm sorry, Sister Wei Wei. I screwed up. The girl turned her head and smiled. It's okay, we're halfway through the saw. The property owner is afraid that it will hit the owner. They've decided to cut it off. Let's go to breakfast first. What do you want to eat? I didn't get a chance to hear that. I haven't slept all night. I fell asleep right after I got in the car. In my dream, I was 8 years old. My mom took me out for fast food that day. She told me to wait for her at the table. She went to the bar to order. At that moment, I noticed a mysterious man at the next table playing with a coin in his hand. She was very good at it. The coins were flying around in her hand like butterflies in a window. She also noticed me watching her. Want to see some magic? Kid. After successfully attracting my attention, she told me to stare at the coin without blinking. She clenched her hands into fists, and then she shouted a funny spell. And when she opened her palms again, the coin had been transferred to another hand. It's really magic. I went up to him with a gasp of surprise, but he told me it was just a little trick. I remember being so angry at him. This is magic. Your hands don't move. The hands that do the magic move around. And then secretly switched to the other hand. The man laughed and said, "You're such a clever little man." Seeing that he didn't contradict me, I hurriedly asked, "My brother, can you teach me magic? It's a bit difficult. Not everyone can learn it. Close your eyes. I'm going to give you magic now, but you mustn't do anything bad with it." Why am I suddenly dreaming about my childhood? That man seemed to look a lot like Shin. When I think about it, it doesn't seem right. It was over 10 years ago. Shin hasn't aged a bit. Maybe I was wearing sunglasses at the time and that I was mistaken. But he can even move through walls in an instant. It's not impossible that he hasn't aged. If that guy was really Shin, how did we meet at that time? I don't think it's just a coincidence. The next day, I asked Wei Wei, "Is there anyone in the world who can live forever?" He told me, "People call the being who created the world Nagi. It could be God or Buddha, or he could be someone like us. But whatever he is, once you sense his presence, you can't help but kneel down," Wei Wei told me. He's heard of people in the organization who have changed their parameters. The price is a lot of points. You get 1 point for solving a bug incident. Newcomers like me shouldn't think about that. My goal at this stage is to accumulate 10 points, so that I can qualify for a new job. It just so happens that there's a serial disappearance case recently. Sister Wei Wei is going to lead us to solve it. According to a reporter on TV, more than a dozen drivers have disappeared from a curved road in the northern suburbs of the city consecutively. The latest case happened last night, on this curve of less than 100 meters. A private car disappeared for no apparent reason. Coincidentally, the camera in the middle of the curve was malfunctioning, so it only captured the car entering the curve. But the camera at point C had no record of the car leaving. The driver is a young man who just became a father 3 months ago. A happy family has been destroyed by this incident. We rushed to this mysterious bend in the night. Sister Wei Wei summoned a red butterfly from her hand. The butterfly hovered for a while and landed on the ground not far away. Then he told us that there was indeed a bug here. I blurted out, "Is that where the butterfly stayed?" Sister Wei Wei suddenly turned her head to look at me. You can actually see the butterfly looking at Fatty and Ah King's confused eyes. I thought the butterfly was too small for them to see. I wanted to go up to them and show them where it was. But just as I stepped forward, Sister Wei Wei grabbed my arm. I suddenly realized that my feet had sunk into the ground. Seeing this scene, I instantly thought of how that private car disappeared. That horrible feeling of sinking into the swamp bit by bit must have tormented that young father for a long time. Sister Wei Wei told me to calm down. She tried to pull my feet out by using her molding ability. She said it was a bug in the swamp. It's a good thing I'm a mold penetrator. Otherwise, I'd be stuck in it and wouldn't be able to get out. That's exactly why. I need to get down there and find someone. Hanking tied a rope around me. It's a special kind of rope. It can't be penetrated by people with mold-piercing abilities. Sister Wei Wei asked me to try to find the missing driver and bring her up. Because people caught in a bug don't necessarily die. Before I left, she told me. She told me before we left that the mold-piercing ability is not invincible. If it's not possible, come up immediately. I smiled and told her, in the game, I'm usually the main character. After that, I put on my headset and started sinking into the ground. It was a strange feeling. The hard concrete road was like a pool of water. Ms. Weiwei finally told me. After going down, she told me to keep talking. If she lost the signal, she'd pull me up immediately. Before long, I was completely submerged in the ground. There was no place to borrow strength. It's hard to get up there by myself, but when I looked up, I could still see Vivi and the others clearly. It was as if I was standing on a glass enclosure. After sinking for a while, I finally saw the missing car. The driver's eyes were closed. I didn't know if he was dead or alive. Sister Weiwei asked me to check her nostrils. If she's breathing, she's still alive. I pushed my palm through the window. I found that there was still airflow from the man's nostrils. We were all very excited at the good news. Sister Weiwei told me to rush to help, but at that moment, there was a soft thud at the rear of the car. Weiwei's voice came through the headset. What's going on? Da Chuan. I took a closer look. Sedan, as if sinking to the bottom, hit a layer of black ground. After hearing what I said, Weiwei told me to come up quickly. That's called the border. The Earth doesn't keep bugs. Anything that touches the border will be destroyed. But I've already found this driver. His wife and newborn daughter are waiting for him to come home. I told Weiwei I wanted to try. This car is sinking very slowly. It took at least 7 to 8 minutes to go from the rear to the front of the car. It's easy for me to get in. Why didn't you save her? Sister Weiwei lost her temper after hearing that. Don't go in, you idiot, but it's too late. My actions were synchronized with my words. I was still wondering. I had already touched the driver. I realized I couldn't pull him. I had to undo the seatbelt myself. Vivi's voice was no longer on the headset. In fact, the moment I entered the car, the communication signal was cut off. Sister Weiwei had already ordered them to force me up, but the rope seemed to be stuck on something. They couldn't pull me up at all. I also realized something was wrong. My ability to penetrate the mold has been disabled. I couldn't get out. I slapped the door as hard as I could, but it didn't help. The whole car seemed to have solidified and didn't move. On the ground, Vivi was also frozen in place. The worst thing has happened. The mold is sealed. Fatty was yelling as he pushed, hurry up, and asked Din to come. Isn't he able to instantly move? Sister Weiwei froze in place and said powerlessly, it's too late. The prerequisite for Xing's teleportation is that he's been here before. The vehicle is still sinking. We don't have much time left. During this time, I've thought of many ways. Even though I crashed my head into the car, not a single window was damaged. With my last desperate hit, I managed to knock myself out. The border spread to the front part of the car. It began to eat away at my body. After being swallowed by the border, I came to this place that looked like a garbage dump. Behind me was a stone statue buried in garbage. I don't know what this place is. I'm glad I survived. I felt my way forward. Is there anyone with 5 senses here? A money machine that keeps spitting out money? There are all sorts of things and people that could be called bugs. Most importantly, I found the hooded girl. Wasn't she sent to quarantine by Shin? As I shouted, Hoodie slowly woke up. She hugged me excitedly. It was as if she had grabbed the straw that saved her life. After some exchanges, I realized that this was the so-called quarantine treatment of the new brother. At that moment, I realized a lot of things. There's no such thing as treatment, because Vivian said, everything that sinks into the border will be destroyed, according to her words. This place is a garbage disposal plant. I figured it out. I have no hope of getting out, but Hoodie still has a glimmer of hope. Oikawa, do you know how to get out? I thought for a while and explained to her. If we compare the world we live into a computer, the amount of data in it must be enormous. When it runs for a long time, there will be incorrect data. The data will be erased as garbage. Hoodie says she's a liberal arts student. He doesn't understand what I'm saying. I can only give him a simpler example. There's a recycle bin directory in your computer. All the junk files you've deleted are there. Where we are now is the world's recycle bin. Hoodie then woke up. He followed my words and continued. One time, my computer was very stuck. After deleting some files, it got better. I ended up deleting my homework. I was so anxious. Luckily, I could recover it in the recycle bin. I don't know what I'm talking about, but I know what I'm talking about. What Hoodie said gave me a flash of insight. If you don't clean up the trash in the recycle bin, will still occupy the computer memory. Too much garbage in the system leads to lagging. That's why there's a bug. Isn't this the same as the real situation? Look at all the garbage. If converted into data, it's a lot of gigabytes. All this garbage will take up the computer's memory. You have to clean it up regularly. Otherwise, it's bound to lag. Once it lags, it affects the running of the program, and if it runs wrong, it'll cause bugs. In other words, if we clean up the garbage here, then the bugs we have will be solved. But how do we clean up this garbage? We got up and went to the statue, because it was the only thing that looked out of place. And so it was. The moment I put my palm on it, the statue began to glow. Then a red arrow appeared in front of us. The arrow was spreading to the far side. I was surprised and said, "This could be the way out." Seeing the hope of getting out, the headgear girl jumped on me. The softness of her breasts made me blush. I have not forgotten the driver, although he was in a coma, but he's still alive on the way. I told Hoodie why I fell. After hearing that, he praised me for being a good person. Even to outsiders, I'm sure I'm a good friend too. The pressure of death disappeared. We laughed a lot on the way. He asked me if I needed a girlfriend. I said yes, but I don't fall in love with pandas. After a few laughs and jokes, we came to the end of the road, but the exit was blocked by the garbage. It took us a lot of effort. We finally found a passageway. It was empty, just a machine and a dead man. I asked Hoodie, "What do you think would happen if you pulled the lever down?" Something unexpected happened. I couldn't reach the switch. I thought it was a bug in my molding, so I asked Hoodie to try. But even he couldn't reach the switch. I know why this dog-headed brother is still dead after walking here. Even if this is the way out, he couldn't open it. At that moment, Hoodie suddenly said weakly, "Oikawa, I'm cold." The thing I'm most afraid of has happened. It's impossible to survive for a long time in this space. In fact, ever since I saw all the corpses along the way, I've thought of that. The hooded girl's body is shivering. Oikawa, you're so warm. I remember when I was a kid. Our house was repossessed by the bank. That night, my dad took me to sleep in a hole in the bridge. He didn't know how to pick a place. It was very windy there. Oikawa's embrace was as warm as my father's when he said his last words. He was so weak that he couldn't breathe. I was so scared I wanted to cry. You're the strongest girl I've ever seen. Don't fall asleep, I'll find a way out. Don't fall asleep, I'm almost there. If there really is an immortal, if there's a fairy, then he must have manifested himself at this moment. I suddenly remembered that Ching had told me when he tied the rope for me. This is the rope that prevents the membrane from piercing. I took off the remaining rope. I kept praying in my heart that it would work. Where I can't see, the stone statue broke out of the ground. At that moment, I could only feel a landslide. The space where I was turned into a red grid until there was a flash of light. A huge figure appeared behind me. At that moment, there was only me, the hooded girl, and the driver left in the space. But no matter what I say, the robot-like stone statue didn't respond. After waiting for a while, his forehead suddenly began to glow. A caption appeared in front of me. The words "mechanical failure," and then it kept changing. Finally, it read Administrator 72 missing. So it looks like it's like a computer recycle bin. It can't be cleaned regularly because the administrator is missing. Before I could think about it, the caption changed again. Are you looking for the administrator? It starts a 5-second countdown, but I realized he only gave me a yes. There was no at the same time. As the countdown ended, the statue began to crumble. I had no other choice in this situation. I shouted, I'll go find the administrator at the last second. We were successfully transported out by the stone statue. Right after Wang Dachwan fell into the border, Wei Wei followed Shin's instructions and started checking the perimeter, because not every car that passes by will fall into the mud puddle bug. So it means this bug exists intermittently like this situation. It's usually caused by a large bug in the surrounding area. Wei Wei knew that Fatty was still in pain from losing his best friend, so he didn't let him follow. The two of them followed the butterfly's instructions to the door of a warehouse. After a brief search, they found a basement in the warehouse. Inside, there were many humans imprisoned, but all of them looked abnormal. Some of their body parts were fused together. Even though Wei Wei has seen a lot of things, it made his head spin. Hing told him it was called molding. The molds are usually parallel to each other. Only molds are irregularly connected. There are so many molders here. No wonder it's affecting the neighborhood. You know, bugs are contagious and can spread. So many bugs gathered together. If we don't deal with them in time, the area will collapse. After making inquiries, Wei Wei realized that everyone here was captured by a one-armed man with long hair. He instantly recalled the delivery man who captured Wang Dachuan. That was a temporary worker hired by the organization, specialized in catching people with bugs. But to his surprise, all the people here said they had no physical abnormalities before they were captured. It's only after the deliveryman locked them in here that their bodies gradually mutated. In that case, someone is deliberately creating a bug, locking a bunch of normal people together, and then threw a bug inside. Within 3 days, a mutation will occur. Hakim is a little confused. If it's really the delivery guy, why would he do that? It's for the money. $100,000 for a normal bug. Like this, it can be doubled. Hanking's thinking about it. It's true. This room alone can be sold for tens of millions of dollars. But there's another problem. In order to prevent the temporary workers to pretend to be something they're not, the organization didn't tell them that the bug disease can mutate. How did this man with a broken arm know that? But Wei Wei suddenly remembered. When we rescued Wang Dachuan and the others that day, Din mentioned this to Broken Arm. At that time, she reminded Din that he shouldn't say anything about it. But he just made up an excuse to get away with it. Did he say it on purpose or by accident? Xing and Wei Wei couldn't figure out what he was thinking. At that moment, there were many footsteps outside. It was the one-armed man with his men delivering a new shipment. But as soon as he opened the door, he realized something was wrong. In the past, when these people saw him, they would always beg or yell, but this time, they all bowed their heads strangely and didn't dare to speak. So he pushed on the door. Wei Wei didn't hide anymore. He immediately showed himself. "You bastard. How dare you do such a thing? Today, I'm going to clean up the organization's mess." He's no match for a one-armed man. He was beaten to a pulp in no time after a slight stop. The one-armed man smiled arrogantly. "Didn't you notice that I never fought back?" Then he slowly got up. "You're the wrong hand. In terms of qualifications, you're my superior, so I cannot fight back. But you have to understand one thing. I've never violated the rules of the organization. I've memorized the temporary workers code like the back of my hand. There's not a single word about creating bugs. You can even call the new brother to make the judgment. If you must sanction me, then please change the rules first." Listening to the man's arrogant words, Wei Wei was unable to refute them. He clearly remembered asking Din at that time. Why there was no rule in the temporary workers code that forbade temporary workers from creating bugs. The explanation at that time was, Wronghand is not allowed to tell temporary workers that the bug certificate has the mechanism of contagion and fusion. If not written, they wouldn't know that they could use this to create bugs. But if it was written, inevitably there will be people who are motivated by profit who will take the risk. Wei Wei remembers the last sentence Din said was, if such a situation really arises, he would apply to the sect master to abolish the temporary worker policy. At that thought, he didn't beat up the man with the broken arm. Instead, he said he wanted to make a phone call to reflect the situation to his superiors. But then something happened. The man with the broken arm took out a stick and attacked him. But Wei Wei was prepared. He was waiting for the broken-armed man to fight back. Attacking a superior is not allowed in the organization. He threw a punch at the man, but his palm fused into his body. Slightly felt that something bad had happened. This man has become the carrier of the mold-melting bug at some point. At this moment, he couldn't dodge. He could only watch the man's counterattack fall. Luckily, Qing had already taken care of the man's men outside the house. He opened the door and came in. He knew what was going on just by glancing at the door. He immediately took out the pistol on his waist. The best way to deal with molten mold is not to make contact with him. He aimed at the man's head and shouted, "Let go of that witch." When the man with the broken arm didn't move, Hank didn't hesitate to pull the trigger. But the man flicked the trigger. The shot hit Wei Wei's shoulder. The man with the broken arm threatened him not to shoot, or he would melt Wei Wei's head into his body and suffocate him to death. The two men then agreed to a peaceful settlement. Qing let him go. He would also release the mold. But before the man with the broken arm could agree, a bullet hit the man in the head. The man collapsed in an instant. Wei Wei was kneeling on top of the man in an extremely humiliating position. Qing said not to rush when the man is dead. The molten mold bug will be invalidated. On the other hand, the fat man who was still grieving in the car realized that he had seen a ghost because he saw Wang Dachuan, who had just been swallowed by the boarder, knocking on his car window.